Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JDW Sports Talk Show. My name is Anthony, and today we're going to be going over how the AFC playoffs are going to work out. The AFC playoff picture is coming down to the wire. The 7 seed is up for grabs. The AFC North is going to be a battle that's going into Week 18. And, those are two pretty big factors, and there's a lot of teams in those respective playoff races. We're mostly only going to be going over the AFC playoff picture today. The NFC playoff picture is pretty much set for the most part outside of the NFC South. But, that's either comes down to Tampa Bay wins, they're in. Tampa Bay loses, Atlanta wins, they're in. So that's what that's going to come down to. But today, in the AFC playoff picture, let's talk about the 7 seed first. Let's go over the 7 seed. So, the Broncos, the Dolphins, and the Bengals. Those are the 3 teams that can get the 7 seed. The Broncos currently they win and they're in. They'll have a better record than both the Dolphins and the Bengals. They're playing the Chiefs, and they're playing the Chiefs backups. I know Carson Wentz will be starting for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes will be sitting out. And while, that does look like, okay, the Broncos should win this game. Last year in Week 18, or I think it was last year, it might have been 2 years ago, Carson Wentz started for the Rams in Week 18, and I'm pretty sure they beat the 49ers. Last year's Week 18, Carson Wentz kind of popped off a little bit. So nothing's a guarantee, especially not with, Andy Reid is still going to be coaching, and he's probably the best coach in the NFL right now. So, if he's coaching to win, you can't count out the Chiefs. You can't. It doesn't matter who's starting for them. If Reid is coaching to win, the Chiefs will be in this game. They really will. It's not going to be just an easy Broncos, okay, we won 30-10, now we're in the playoffs. If he doesn't coach to win and he just coaches to play the game, then the Broncos, that should happen. The Broncos should beat the Chiefs handily. But what that's going to need is the Broncos are going to need to run the ball really well. And they have been having a lot of success recently running the football. McLaughlin, I've been seeing him, the other running backs in the backfield, they've been able to get nice yards per carry every single time they touch the football. But as well as that, Bo Nix needs to be careful with the ball. He can't turn it over. He can't give the Chiefs offense more time to work than they should. He can't give them lots of time with the football. The Broncos need to own the line of scrimmage. They need to own time of possession, and they need to score points. Especially if the Chiefs are scoring points when they have the ball. If the Chiefs are scoring points, the Broncos need to score more points. Is what needs to happen for the Broncos to make the playoffs. Like I already said, the defense has to stop Carson Wentz, which I don't think should be a problem. The Broncos have one of the best QB pressure defenses. I'm pretty sure they lead the NFL in sacks. They're top 5 for sure. The Broncos defense has really been what's gotten them to this point. And if they have any success in the playoffs, if they can get to the playoffs, it will probably mostly be defense-led rather than offense-led. Their defense is just really good. Vance Joseph has really got this group in a good place. I'm really impressed with him. I remember a lot of people were, calling for his job after the 70-point disaster to the Dolphins last year, but ever since that game, he really has turned this defense around, and they're playing like a top 5 defense almost every week. So let's just say the Broncos lose this game. If the Broncos somehow lose this game to the Chiefs' backups, they can still make the playoffs. However, it's not a given. I mean, they would need the Bengals to lose, and the Bengals are playing the Steelers. So while the Bengals losing is more likely to happen than the Dolphins losing, because the Dolphins are playing, I think, the Jets. And the Jets are a dumpster fire. I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers is like, you know what? Screw the Dolphins and beats them anyway. But I don't even think Aaron Rodgers could do that. I think the Dolphins should probably win that game. But going back to the Bengals-Steelers game, that game, the Bengals they really have to win that game. I mean, and their defense has to be able to somehow stop Russell Wilson. And I know I say somehow, that shouldn't be easy, but for the Bengals defense, it probably won't be. They do somehow have to find a way to stop Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson played extremely well the last time the Steelers and the Bengals played each other. He hasn't played very well since then, but he did play really well against the Bengals earlier in the season. And, the Steelers are favored to win that game. That doesn't really matter a whole lot. It doesn't. But, because it's only it's almost 50-50. The Steelers are given a 52% chance to win. Not that great of odds to win the game. But then the Bengals have even worse odds to win the game. But the Dolphins and the Bengals would have to lose the Broncos to make the playoffs if the Broncos lose to the Chiefs. All three of those teams lose, the Broncos are in. If the Broncos lose and the Dolphins or Bengals win, then, if the Dolphins win and the Broncos lose, the Dolphins are in. It doesn't matter what happens to the Bengals. The Dolphins would be in the playoffs as a 7th seed if they win and Denver loses. Now, if the Dolphins lose, and as well as the Broncos, and the Bengals win, then the Bengals are in the playoffs as a 7th seed. And I'll be honest, I am a Broncos fan, and so I really want the Broncos in the playoffs just because I'm tired of them not being in the playoffs. However, I will say, for entertainment purposes, for watching the game and thinking that this is going to be the most fun game we could get, the Bengals in the playoffs would also not be that bad. Because whoever the 7th seed is, they're going to play the Bills. And I don't know that the Broncos, and especially not the Dolphins, have what it takes to even really go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and the Bills. I just don't think they do. I think Joe Burrow does. Obviously, Joe Burrow beat Buffalo the last time they played in the playoffs. And quite handily, too. I'm pretty sure it was a blowout, 27-10. But that's the thing. I'm not saying the Broncos or Dolphins can't beat the Bills. I'm just saying I don't think they would. I just don't think. On the road in Buffalo in January, especially for Miami. If Miami has to go play that, I think last time they played, they did actually surprise a lot of people with how well they played. But I don't think, I don't know. This team feels even worse than that team was, and that team didn't feel that great going into that game. Now, the Broncos, if they played the Bills, they did play the Bills last year on the road. Not in the playoffs. It was the regular season, but they did still win. But it really was sheer Buffalo just shot themselves in the foot. The Bills should have won that game. I'm pretty sure. The Broncos lined up to kick a field goal, he missed the field goal, but there was a penalty on Buffalo because they had 12 men on the field, so Denver got another crack at it, and they made it that time. So they shouldn't have really won that game. I mean, they were kind of bailed out by Buffalo's stupidity on that play, but... And they also had Russell Wilson, who I know is not a great quarterback anymore. He definitely was, but he's not really anymore. And so Bo Nix is not Russell Wilson yet. I think he could be at some point, even maybe be better than Russell Wilson's prime, but I don't know that it's yet. But yeah, I think Denver or Cincinnati have the best chance to beat the Bills. I don't know that either one would. But what's so intriguing with the Bengals too is that, I mean, their defense is absolutely atrocious and will not stop Josh Allen and the Bills offense. They just won't. But the Bills defense is also not that great either. I mean, it's really not. Josh Allen does not have that good of a defense. And both of their coaches are not that great either. I think Sean McDermott is better than Zach Taylor, but still not great. Not good enough to where I think they can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. I just don't. But if the Bengals somehow do beat the Bills, and then they would have to go on the road to Arrowhead the next week. And we've already seen that playoff story before. We saw the Bengals go into Buffalo, handle Buffalo, go on the road to Arrowhead the next week, and they weren't able to get it done. Now, it did come to, the Bengals' stupidity of, hitting Patrick Mahomes late out of bounds to give him another 15 or so yards to kick a field goal, but they weren't able to get it done. I mean, this is absolutely not ideal. To have to go on the road to Buffalo and then on the road to Arrowhead in back-to-back weeks. It's probably not even ideal to play Buffalo or Kansas City in back-to-back weeks. It doesn't matter if it's on the road or if you get a home game or both of them are at home. It's not going to be ideal to play both of them in back-to-back weeks. So, I mean, if the 7 seed, it doesn't matter who it is, somehow manages to beat Buffalo, Kansas City is probably going to go to the AFC Championship game again. Because I don't think a 7 seed can beat Buffalo and Kansas City in back-to-back weeks on the road. I don't think that will happen. If it does, cool, that's great, good for them. But I just don't think it will happen. Now, let's talk about the AFC North title, and that's the Ravens and the Steelers. Right now, the Ravens are a game ahead of Pittsburgh for the title, and they're playing the Browns. So, I mean, the Ravens are favored to beat the Browns, which means they're favored to win the AFC North. But if, heaven forbid, the Ravens lose to the Browns and the Steelers beat the Bengals, then the Steelers would be the 3 seed and Baltimore would be the 5 seed, I believe. Yeah, they would be the 5 seed. And then the Chargers then would be the 6 seed, and either Denver or Miami would be the 7 seed, depending on who won every game. So the Steelers lose. So if the Bengals win, Steelers lose, and the Chargers win, then that would give the Chargers the 5 seed. The 5 seed is probably what I think most people would want, especially in the first round, because the 5 seed gets to play Houston. And while it's on the road, Houston is not playing like a team who can win in the playoffs. They're really not. They're playing atrocious football. CJ Stroud is not playing like last year. CJ Stroud was playing so well. I thought the Texans might even be able to beat the Ravens in the playoffs. They did not. And the first couple of weeks of this season, the Texans were still really good. It was looking really good, and then all of a sudden the wheels came off. And Texans are looking absolutely horrible. So the 5 seed is probably what you want, and it's gonna be Baltimore, Los Angeles, or Pittsburgh that gets it. And I guarantee you, all 3 of those teams would be favored to beat the Texans. And if the Steelers get the 5 seed, well, that would be quite fortunate for them, because the Texans might be the only team in the playoffs that they could probably beat. Now, it's only for the first round, because odds are the 5 seed would beat the 4 seed, but, the 2 seed, the Bills, and the 3 seed, AFC North champion, are probably good favorites to win, which means that the Bills would play the 3 seed, which means the 5 seed would have to go play Kansas City in the playoffs. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, the Chiefs don't look that good this year. They are 15-1. Which, while they haven't won convincingly for the most part, they have started to look more convincing these past 2 games against the Browns and the Steelers. Oh, wait, the Browns wasn't the last 2 games. The Texans and the Steelers. They looked pretty convincing. They really did. They're starting to look convincing. And the Chiefs have the most playoff experience of any team. It is going to take some really just sloppy performance by the Chiefs on both sides of the football to stay in, or to get eliminated from the playoffs. That's what it's going to take, absolute sloppy football. And I don't know that Andy Reid can coach sloppy football. And I don't know that I'm not trying to glaze Patrick Mahomes here. Like I said, I'm a Broncos fan. I hate the Chiefs. But the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL until proven otherwise. They are probably going to win the Super Bowl for the 3rd year in a row. I don't want to see it. I know nobody else wants to see it outside of Chiefs Kingdom, but they probably are. It's just the way that it is, to be honest. I think the team that realistically has the best chance to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, and this is going to sound absolutely absurd to a lot of people because they have a history of, screwing up in big moments, is the Chargers. I think the Chargers are the NFL's best shot at seeing the Chiefs go down in the playoffs. The best shot. Maybe the Bills too. The Bills could definitely give the Chiefs a run for their money. It's just the Chiefs have the Bills' number. They just do. They just have the Bills' number in the playoffs. Regular season, yeah, Josh Allen owns that matchup. But in the playoffs, when it actually sort of matters, Patrick Mahomes is, he's Josh Allen's father. Now, I know that the Chargers also have been owned by the Chiefs. But where it's a divisional matchup, the Chargers and the Chiefs play twice every year. You could say the same for the Broncos, but I don't think the Broncos have experienced enough players. Now, I know that the Chargers don't have barely any more playoff experience than the Broncos do. But, I mean, the Broncos have no playoff experience at all whatsoever, besides Sean Payton. But, I mean, the Chargers have been to the playoffs. Yes, they did lose that game to the Jaguars, but it's still experience. Experience is experience. And they see the Chiefs way more than any other team in the NFL. Not way more, but they do see the Chiefs more than anybody else besides the Broncos and the Raiders. So I do think that the Chargers are the best shot at beating the Chiefs. But the Chargers would have to not, quote-unquote, charger it, which is very possible that they would. But if the Chargers get the 5 seed, they play Texans, which they would definitely be favored in that matchup. The Chargers should beat Houston. They should. They beat Houston. Let's see, if they're the 5 seed, that would mean Pittsburgh is the 6 seed, which means the Ravens probably would beat Pittsburgh. They probably would. At home, I mean, the Steelers are kind of on a, downward spiral. The Ravens should beat, they should beat the Steelers at home in the playoffs. I think, yeah. Okay, so that would mean, and the Bills probably will be favored against any 7 seed they play, any of the 3 teams that they play, and they should beat them. They probably will. So we'll go with that. So Bills would play Ravens, and then Chargers would play Chiefs, which would be, honestly, that would be a really exciting AFC divisional. Chiefs-Chargers, and then Bills-Ravens. And we've talked about, Chiefs-Chargers. I think the Chargers can beat the Chiefs. I don't think they would. But then Bills-Ravens, I mean, that would be really, really good TV, I hope. Maybe it would be like, a college football playoff disaster where every game looks like it's going to be amazing, and we've only had, 1, maybe 2 good games. I mean, the Ravens did play the Bills earlier in the season, and the Bills got rocked. The Ravens handily beat the Bills, which is probably why Lamar should win MVP over Josh Allen, unless there's a stat in that game that I'm not accounting for. But I don't think that would happen again. I don't think the Ravens' defense would be able to stop Josh Allen in the playoffs. I mean, Josh Allen in the playoffs, he's going to be on a mission. I mean, he is going to be... So is Lamar Jackson. I mean, both of these quarterbacks they've had very disappointing postseasons. They really have in the past, in their careers. They've never gotten it done when it matters the most. Never. So that's what it's gonna come down to. Is who's gonna step it up and make the move? Because unfortunately for Lamar Jackson, they're not playing the Texans again this year. I don't think they would have won in the playoffs last year. I think the Ravens would have been one and done if they would have played a real team, not the Texans. And I know the Texans were good last year, but, I mean, the Ravens were better than the Texans and should have beaten the Texans. So, I mean, who's going to play Kansas City in the AFC Championship game this year? Is it going to be Buffalo? Is it going to be Baltimore? Heaven forbid, is it going to be Pittsburgh? If it's Pittsburgh, well, congratulations, Kansas City, on, another AFC Championship. But, yeah, I mean, these playoff matchups, I feel like any way you really look at them, they could be so exciting. So exciting. I mean, especially now I know I love the Broncos, and I really hope they make the playoffs. But if the Bengals get in, I mean, that game against the Bills would be quite hyped up. and I hope that it would be a really fun game to watch. I'm not 100% sure. You can never tell anymore. Every game that looks like it's going to be fun on paper ends up being a blowout nowadays, I swear. I don't know why, but it just does. I mean, any playoff situation that you look at in the AFC could really go any way. It really could. If we had, completely follow the book officials, because I don't really feel like the officials have really favored one team or another this year. I feel like they've just been horrible. Like, they just suck for everybody. It's not like they're biased against one team or not. Like, they just really just suck. They do. And that's whatever, You got to find a way around that. But, I mean, if we can have no, game-ruining penalties for the most part, these games should be really fun. I'm really excited. This week 18 is going to be really exciting to see who gets in the playoffs. Who gets, the 7th seed, who gets the AFC North, playoff seeding indicators. It's going to be really fun. And then that first weekend, the wild card, and depending on what happens in the wild card, the divisional round, it all could be really fun to watch. Really fun to hype up, too. I mean, it's playoff season, baby. I'm excited. I hope you all are excited. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for me here. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.